everybody. Welcome to another edition of Secure the Seat Live here on LinkedIn Live. And we're also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I hope that you had a great weekend. If you're watching us live, you could be anywhere in the world right now and you're here with us. And so I don't take that lightly. To all of you who join us every Monday at noon, thank you for rocking with us. And for those who are new, you're already part of the squad. My name is Minda Hartz and I'm your host. Just happy that you're here. I'm coming off a weekend. I don't typically celebrate I don't really celebrate a lot of things, but I definitely don't celebrate birthdays because in my head, I'm like, I'm forever young and I never want to talk about how old I am. But I celebrated this weekend and had a really, really great time. So if you follow me on social media, you can see some of the fun things. If you read any of my books, you know that I am a Beyonce stan and a Drake stan. And two of those things came together. I had a Beyonce impersonator, which is super over the top. That is the Aries in me, and a beautiful Drake cake, and a lot of good friends that celebrated. So it was a lot of fun. And I'm getting older, so I'm still, getting my rest to recover from all of the fun. But I'm excited about today's conversation because Dr. Malaika Tubbs, she's a friend in my head. I've been following her work and reading her work for a very long time, and I'm just so excited to talk about her book. If you haven't gotten it, it's a New York Times bestseller. This is my copy, The Three Mothers. I read it last year, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. And you know that I am all things Black women, and so it's just a beautiful narrative of making Black women the main character, and not sometimes we're the supporting characters in other people's lives, but we actually have our own paths and dreams and pursuits. And so it's just a beautiful book. We're going to drop the link in the chat. So if you haven't had a chance to buy this New York Times best-selling book, make sure that you support. So tell us in the chat how you're. I hope you had a good weekend. Hope you're feeling good. Michael, join us at the end and give us our affirmations. But without further adu, I want to bring up today's special guest, Dr. Malaika Tubbs. She is a New York Times bestseller. She is a TED Talk alum, a beautiful TED Talk that she did. We're going to drop those things. She's so many things. She's a scholar, and we're going to bring her to the stage. And I hope that while we are talking, you will just go to wherever you like to buy your books, and you'll purchase that book right now and add it to your collection. Summer's coming. You're going to be on the beach, or you're going to be somewhere in your house. You'll need some new reads on your bookshelf. So make sure that you do that.
Good morning, everyone. Well, afternoon for you guys on the East Coast. I'm great. How are you?
It's so good to see you. Thank you for making time.
You too. Happy belated.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Anna, tell everybody a little bit more about you who may not be familiar with your work.
Yeah, well, oh gosh, what to say? Well, first and foremost, I'm a mom that always reminds me in the morning when I have morning interviews. I'm trying to get here on time, even though I just have to make it to my office. And my kids are like, no, mom. So I love them. I have my 2.5-year-old and my 8-month-old, and recently moved to LA about a year ago. And my work is all centered on the pervasive erasure of Black women. I have degrees in anthropology, gender studies, and in sociology. But I'm all about translating what I learned in the academy and really sharing it with everybody within and outside. Especially, I want to be more of a public-facing scholar. So a lot of my work, you're not going to see the kind of academic jargon as much as you would in my dissertation or my theses. You're more so going to feel the connection to the stories and the humans behind those stories. So if that is anyone is saying, oh, I don't want to read something that's super academic, this book is entirely just about connecting and really seeing how we can learn through the eyes of these 3 incredible Black women.
Oh, I love it. It's such a beautiful book. Thank you for gifting this book to us. And, one of the things that I love is that you make these 3 Black women. You have Bertha Baldwin, Alberta King, and Louise Little. Talk about why you decided to use those 3 women, and maybe add a little bit about how sometimes Black women are in the shadows, right? But we have our own lives, we have our own dreams, and oftentimes people probably didn't even know who James Baldwin's mom was until they read your book, right? So I love that.
Yeah, there were so many inspirations that led to this book, but I'll kind of narrow them down. I first loved Hidden Figures. I absolutely loved this book written by Margot Lee Shetterly that went on to become this incredible film that so many of us know. But I was inspired because I was so angry that this was the first time I was hearing these women's stories. And it was so clear that this was not a mistake. I often say it's not that someone was there going, oh, oops, we forgot to tell you it was Black women behind NASA all along, but instead that it was very intentional, that they would be kept from us, that their stories would be hidden and swept under the rug. And so I said, I want to be somebody who finds other hidden figures. I want to really change our discourse by making sure we're celebrating people that we should have known all along. And then I also had an incredible mom who was a lawyer who advocated for women's rights in the US as well as abroad. So my siblings and I had the privilege of traveling from country to country with my parents' work. And my mom very specifically focused on how mothers were being treated in different communities. And she always told us to spend time paying attention to that, that if mothers were being treated well, that community would do well, and vice versa. If they were not being treated well, that community would not do well. And so I had that in the back of my mind even before I became a mom myself. So I was going to combine this Hidden Figures project with a celebration of motherhood. And I narrowed it down to these three because the civil rights movement is something that we come back to all the time, and we will continue to do so. We're always thinking about how our world aligns with what our civil rights heroes envisioned for us. But we speak about it from such a male perspective. And I said, I don't want to talk about necessarily the women behind the man, because I don't actually think that exists. And I really hate that saying. But I wanted to talk about the women before the men even existed, to make it clear to everyone that no matter who you're talking about, you're actually telling a woman's story. And especially when we're talking about the civil rights movement, this is Black women's stories. And we really need to celebrate that. So for whatever reason that people come to the book, whether it's because they wanted to learn more about the sons, or if they authentically wanted to know more about the women, they were going to walk away knowing three Black women's stories that they should have known all along. And the final thing I'll say is that Alberta King, Bertus Baldwin, and Louise Little were all born within 6 years of each other. And then their famous sons were all born within 5 years of each other. So this kind of simple thing allowed me to bring these three incredibly different and beautifully diverse stories together through time without reducing the complexity of their identity. Because as Black women, we know we are usually not represented, but if we are, it's as if we are a monolith, as if we are all the exact same. And it's very frustrating. It's a reduction of our humanity. And so I didn't want to do that in my celebration of Black womanhood and Black motherhood. I wanted to make sure that I explained all the layers of who we are and the many different ways that we can be Black women, and bringing them together through chronology.
Again, thank you so much for doing that, because I just love the notion of making a scene, right? We've always been here, right? Just making a scene and shining that light on us is so important. You talk about Black motherhood and the celebration of Black motherhood, and shout out to all the mothers out there, but those who are chosen mothers, all kinds of mothers, but we celebrate Black motherhood. And you have a wonderful, beautiful TED Talk that we're going to drop inside of the chat so that people can take a watch and share it out with others. Make sure that you share the goods. Here, our success is not a solo sport. We got to share the goods with people. But talk to us about what Black motherhood means to you.
Yeah, so much. And there's layers of this that are so difficult and can be really hard and heartbreaking. I first want to talk about how Black motherhood in the US is the epitome of dehumanization, really. We are the only ones who by law were told that we were the givers of non-life through our children. So in law, it was written that our children were not human beings and they were not our children, but instead somebody else's property. So this is the epitome of dehumanization. We're going to treat you as less than human. And our entire country was built on this notion that Black women were not human and whatever they created was not human either. But that is not the full story of Black womanhood and Black motherhood, right? We know that Black women have never accepted that. They've never accepted that they themselves should be treated as less than human, and especially that their children should be treated as less than human. And so they've had this vision of what's possible in a world beyond what's readily available to us. And so we're constantly pushing the world to see that we should all be treated as human beings with dignity and with respect. And so I often say that this is like the vision of Black motherhood. And not only in that biological sense, it's also our community mothers, our foremothers, our teachers, the ways in which Black women are bringing life beyond birthing children even. It's through our activism, through our creativity, through our art, which is all about communicating this message of what's possible in this world beyond what other people can see. We're kind of challenging this notion of this myopic notion of limit and of scarcity, when in fact it's abundance, and there's so much that we need to share with each other, and a celebration of our differences. That's why I'm so in love with the concept of studying Black motherhood and what it can do for our world when we really respect that vision.
I love that so much, because it's just so important. I mean, as we all know, or many of us do, maybe some people don't, but the erasure of Black women, our humanity, our dignity, and just the different intersections that we sit at, like motherhood, right? Or just as human beings, and how some people just don't give us that same care, and we don't have those soft places to land. And so I love that your writing is that soft place for us to land. So thank you. Thank you. And I have to say, you have some good news. You have a new book that you're working on. Are you able to tell us, give us a little sample?
Yes, finally, I can finally talk about it. As you know, in book world, things are happening behind the scenes before you can say anything, and things tend to take a little while. So I've known about it for a couple months, but I'm so happy I can finally talk about it. So a lot of people with the three mothers would always ask me, how did they get erased? How did this happen? You've now shown how important they were to our history, to our country, to our world. How did this happen? And it's so hard for me to answer, when I'm in like a book talk, or, we have like 45 minutes and we have a bunch of other questions coming, because it's patriarchy, and it's racism, and it's these huge things and systems that are working the way that they're supposed to work. And they're overlapping to work the way that they're supposed to work, the way they're designed to work. And I thought, there's not a book that I can really recommend to someone that says the erasure of three Black mother stories is just one of many symptoms of a system operating in this way. And it's tangible. It's not these like just feelings, it's not that Black women just feel that we're being excluded. It's that we were excluded, that it was written in law. Like I was saying earlier, that there are multiple moments that we can actually put our finger on and say, this is why we're still experiencing this to this day. And we've been so fortunate to have books the last several years that are mapping that very specifically for racist thought in America, that are making it so much easier for all of us who, are on this kind of social justice larger team to say, read this book, because you need to catch up to some of the things that have been happening in our nation. And some of those are stamped from the beginning: caste, white rage. There are so many that are critical. And I'm going to add to that conversation this mapping of patriarchal thinking and how it intersects with the conversations we're having in around race and racism. So really excited to take this on. And the claim that we need to be able to map it. So it's called Erased as of now. It could change by the time it's published, probably in the next 2 or 3 years. But to really talk about how the erasure of these women is just a symptom of actually a system that is operating in kind of an invisible way. So I'm going to make that patriarchy very visible.
Oh, I can't wait. And you're so right that publishing my book, Right Within, it was actually called something else when I signed the book deal.
Yeah. What was it originally? I want to know.
It was called Pack Light. Yeah. So, but I think Right Within it worked out how it needed to. But it's just funny when you get these book deals, a lot of people don't know that you start out sometimes with a certain angle or a different thing, and sometimes it kind of changes. But I'm so excited. And for now, you all get your copy of Three Mothers. So read up, catch up.
Now you're ready for the bigger one. Yeah.
You need that in your life and share it. But I'm so excited. Congratulations to you. My last question before we wrap into our bonus round is around book writing, because as we both know, you probably get just as many questions about book writing as you might get from some of the other things. I know that people always have questions about it, but for those out in the audience who are thinking about writing a book, who want to write a book, what's one piece of advice you would give to our aspiring writers watching us today?
Oh, there's I always have too much to say and too little time. But I would say, especially if you're thinking of a nonfiction idea, a lot of people don't realize that you actually can sell the idea before you start writing. So I've heard a lot of people are like, I'm working on a book, and especially nonfiction. I'm like, oh, why don't you go and try to like shop that, because then you'll have a lot of backing around you. You'll have the support. You might have the money even to then complete this work. So with nonfiction, especially, you don't have to have a full book in order to start getting people behind you and maybe even getting a book deal. With fiction, that's different. You write the full novel, which I'm working on a novel right now as well. And then you sell it once it's like almost nearly perfect and complete, especially when it's your first kind of stab at maybe trying to get a book deal. So I think it's important for a lot of people to know that, like, there's so many amazing ideas out there and people feel like they have to have it 100% perfect. And you and I know you're going to have this amazing relationship with your editor. You're kind of got to go back and forth in these conversations and really get it to where it's going to be eventually. But a lot of people are delaying that because they think they have to have a perfect piece before they go out there and share it. So share the idea, talk to more people about it. And maybe you might have some money to start writing it, quit the other job and start working on the book.
It's possible. We are living proof of these manifestations.
It can happen.
But yes, I know there's so many people out there who have books. I know some of the people in the chat are part of the writing retreats that I've done in the past. But the one thing that I want to tell you is the same advice that I always hold on to, that Toni Morrison said: write the book you want to read.
Yeah.
And just go out there and do it. And sometimes you might have to self-publish. Sometimes it might be traditional, but don't wait. What you have control over today is you can start writing right now. You don't have to have permission for that. So thank you. Dr. Anna, I could talk to you all day, but I know you have erasure to attend to and all kinds of other things. But one of the things that I like to do with my guests is we go into our bonus round. I am a lover of grits in rap lyrics. Dr. Anna, are you a grits girl?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. How do you like your grits? We got to know.
Honestly, I like them sweeter. I don't know. Is this controversial?
Controversial here. It's a kid to see. I'll just pretend we didn't hear earmuffs.
I'm a sweet versus savory girl, though. Always I am, and it's a problem. I have a serious sweet tooth.
It is. I need to talk to your husband about this. see what's going on here. But I love it. One of the things with a good bowl of grits, regardless of how you like to have them, is a good rap lyric. What's one of your favorite rap lyrics and why?
Always. I mean, I love Tupac and always have. Since a man can't make one, he has no right to tell a woman when and where to create one.
Boom. That's period. Period.
Because it's also just like the choice, whether you become a mother or not, whether you want to or not. It has nothing to do with men telling us what we can and cannot do with our bodies. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of people out right now that need to hear that line again, because they've forgotten that they shouldn't be talking about what has nothing to do with them. But that's a whole nother episode. But what I will say for this community is, one of the things that I talk about on our show is that everybody has the capacity to lead. You don't need your manager or your boss to give you a promotion to be a leader. We can all activate today. What's one piece of advice you would give everyone on how they can make the workplace better than they found it?
For me, the biggest thing is this kind of comfort and celebration of difference, that it's not about us all being the same. And I think a lot of leaders feel that they want people to feel like, look, we have all these things in common, and like, look how much more similar we are to each other than anything else. And that is why a lot of people feel like their identity isn't being seen or celebrated, or that they're being kind of forced to assimilate or kind of put who they are away as they enter into the workplace, versus this notion of, we are all incredibly different from each other. And that's how we are going to be stronger as a team, is in celebrating those differences, bringing those backgrounds to the table, different skills. And I think a lot more companies would be more successful if we had a comfort and celebration of difference versus kind of putting the sameness on a higher pedestal.
That's a tweetable. I love that. And that is very true. And I hope that each of you will take that into consideration as you think about navigating the rest of the week in your workspace. I know many of you are returning back to the office, and we want you to be able to return not back to normal, but back to better. And so what does better look like? We want that. But Dr. Anna, I'm so proud of you for all of your accomplishments. And I know you're just scratching the surface, but if you have not picked up the Three Mothers, do yourself a big time favor and get it. It's available in all different types of platforms and modalities, so you can listen to it the way you like to consume your content. Any final thoughts that you'd love to share with the audience?
No, I'm just so happy to be here. I hope you all have an incredible week. And like you said, that we're not thinking about returning to normal, but returning to better. So I've been honored to be in conversation with you and finally to have a conversation versus just like our tweets and supporting each other and loving on each other. So the next step is meeting in person, which I look forward to.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I just appreciate your voice and how you're using it, how you're being seen and using your voice forward facing. So thank you. We're here supporting you, rooting for you. And we will see. I'll see you on the internet streets, but I will see you in the live streets very soon. So have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Oh, that was such a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Listen, think about some of the things that were said. Share this episode out. Make sure that you share the book. We dropped the link in the chat. It's a phenomenal book, definitely. And also Dr. Anna's TED Talk is phenomenal too. So share that out. No longer erasing. We are not hidden figures. This week, when you're thinking about how you want to show up in the world, don't be hidden. Be seen. Take up space. The question that I want you to ask yourself is not should I take up space, but how much space do I want to take up? That should be the goal for the week. And I want to bring my partner in Shine, Mike, up so he can do our affirmation. We're at the end of April. I cannot believe it. But hey, Mike, how are you?
What's up, Melinda? How are you? Phenomenal episode. Phenomenal.
Great. Just feel good. Whenever we get to talk about centering Black women, I just love it. But before we get into our affirmation, before we close out the show, I want to, everybody in the chat, Mike's birthday is tomorrow. Give him some birthday love. Give him some birthday love. Tweet him, share with him. I'm just so proud of you, brother. Thank you for how you support me, how you show up for me, the type of father and man that you are. I'm just so insanely proud of you to be able to not just call you a brother, but a friend. And I'm just really proud of you. So thank you and happy early birthday. I can't believe you're catching up to me in age. We won't talk about what that age is. And so
everybody catches up to everybody after a while.
Give Mike and if you are trying to figure this out, I'm one of 3 kids. We are all born in April. And then I have a nephew, one of Mike's kids. He is also in April. And Boston, my dog, is April. Boston had his birthday on the 21st. So, we get it popping in April. But our affirmation, close us out, Mike, with let's hit it.
Absolutely. So our affirmation this month, Melinda, has been, I am made for this. And one of the things that I want to talk about today is stop letting others define who you are. Well, in a minute, we'll let somebody tell us who we are. Well, you're this type of person, or you're this type of worker. You're trying to do this. And we internalize all this. And we believe what others say about us, both good and bad. Sometimes believing what others say about us, when it's affirming to us, we're high on it. But when it's not affirming to us, we live and we die by the sword. So rather than getting super high on positive affirmation from others or negative affirmation from others getting super low, we have to understand who we are. Why we were made for this, why we were created for this. The older I get, the better understanding that I get when our parents used to tell us, you're not going to see half these people that you saw at the beginning of your career or your last job or your high school friends. And you talk about a lot of that in You Are More Than Magic, right? Some of the things that shape us and define us, we have to get past a lot of this stuff because we're still dwelling when somebody didn't affirm us. That's why these positive affirmations are so powerful, Melinda, that we have to affirm ourselves. We have to talk to ourselves. We have to continue to speak our own manifestations into existence. You had said last week, your mindset has to match your manifestation, right? Is that correct? And if that's the case, your mindset has to be so strong that positive things are coming to you, that everything that God has to offer is coming to you in groves, because you believe that even before it exists. And we believe every negative thing that we hear out there, but when we affirm ourselves positively, it's so hard for us to wrap ourselves around it. And we have to change that programming and get to our next season and our next level in life. You were made for this. You were called for this. You were created for this because you actually believe it. Thank you, Minda.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Again, remind yourself today, no matter what it is, what you're experiencing, it may feel like, the sigh, the big, deep sigh, but you were made for this. Doesn't mean that you should be oppressed or any of those things. What we're saying is you can jump over any hurdle. You can make it to any finish line, right? What is for you won't miss you. You were made for this, okay? And so we're in this together, right? You don't have to go at life alone. One of the things that I love about Secure the Seat every Monday is that we are in community. And in those moments where we feel like we can't do it, we can come here and get a little more fresh perspective. We can be reminded of our worth. You mentioned something, Michael, in my latest book, for those who haven't had a chance, You Are More Than Magic, my young adult book that came out two weeks ago, I think. I talk about not allowing someone's response to us to dictate our worth. So if somebody tells you no this week, do not attach that to your worth and how you see yourself, right? You were made for everything. Again, another thing I like to say is that I belong in every room that I enter, but not every room deserves to have me, right? If people are treating me poorly, I don't have to connect my worth to them saying yes to me or no to me or whatever. I get to affirm me. I get to create this space for me. And if this isn't a space that's affirming me, then I need to check in with myself, get right within, and figure out why I'm here, right? What am I getting out of this? I can no longer do life centering these negative, oppressive things. The other thing I'm going to say, and then we'll wrap up today's show, is having a great conversation with a friend over the weekend, Mike. And one of the things that we were talking about is that toxic relationships. Sometimes many of us are, when we talk about where you're supposed to be, if you're not paired up with right people in your life, family, friends, partners, whatever the case may be, business associates, then what would it look like to remove yourself from that situation, right? We don't have to continue to participate in our own oppression with these things, people, and places, right? It's okay to take the space you need to get out of situations so that you can be healthy for this, right? You're not going to be able to enjoy what you were made for if you're connected to all these toxic entities and thoughts. You're not going to be made for the things that you were supposed to be made for if you allow those things to stop you from where you're going. And so it's so important. You were made for this, but you have to make sure that your space is made for you to be able to move forward, right? So if we're made for what we are right now, let's not allow those negative thoughts and patterns and people to suffocate us, because it could be a lot easier. It doesn't have to be as hard, right? Let me give you a breaking news. Life doesn't have to be the struggle all the time. There are things that we can do to make sure that we are made for this, but there's certain things we need to push away. There's certain thoughts we have to eliminate in order for us to be where we really need to be. Mike, any final thoughts you want to add to what I was saying?
Absolutely, Minda. When I used to play sports, when I used to play tennis, our dad said that when you hit the ball, you can use the old tennis rackets, right? You can use old equipment and you can win, but it's going to be a struggle, right? When my parents bought me, our parents bought me a new tennis racket, I was still winning the matches, but it was a lot easier. I could do it in an hour instead of 6 hours, fighting for every point, fighting for everything, sweating. Right? Because I had the skills. I was already made for it, but I was using old tools. I was using broke down equipment. And that's a lot of times you could, equate that to anything. You could get to anywhere you want in a broke down car, but when you're blessed with that new ride, it's a lot easier than putting gas in your car, putting water in the tank, and you got to turn the engine this way and do this and that, and don't put the seat too far back. You can do all that and pat yourself on the back and say the struggle is real. Wear all your t-shirts talking about the struggle is real. But let me tell you something. When you get these new tools, when you get your mindset ready, when you get those toxic friends, those toxic relationships, those toxic business partners out the way, and the struggle is over, you're going to thank us for this last part of this episode, because it's a lot easier when you don't have to struggle and do a lot of things to get to the same position that you are called for and made for, because you're going to get there. You're that talented, you're that smart, you're that amazing, but it could take you 1 year instead of 20.
That part. Listen, we want to thank you all. You were made for this. So as you're going into the last full week of April, think about what you were made for, what you want, and what needs to be out of the way so that you can be made for it healthy, right? Healthy. Because good things can come to you today. You can get the promotion, you can get the raise, your boss can email you and say, guess what? You're going to be working 100% remotely. You can get all the good news, right? But if you're not ready, if you don't believe it, if you're not prepared for the goodness that's coming to you, or you're not moving things out of the way that no longer serve you, you're like, oh, I wonder why so-and-so always makes me feel bad. Why are you still talking to them? Why are you still dealing with it? Why haven't you created the boundary? Now, I understand that it's not always easy, but this is the reminder. We all are working at it every day. There's not a day. As a business owner, there's not a day that goes by that I don't have to make a tough decision, that I don't have to say, you know what, this is no longer working. This is this, or in this season of my life, I need to not be so accessible, or I need to be more in community. But there's certain things, in order for me to be made for this, you have to create the space so you can receive it and know what the good things are, right? Because if we're in the trenches and we're not paying attention and we're not navigating in the ways that that are feeding us and amplifying our minds, it's all mindset. A lot of it really begins in the mind. And so again, let's not have an enemy state of mind this week. Let's have an empire state of mind. You can make it anywhere, but is your environment ready to take you where you need to go? So you think about it. We'll see you next Monday here at noon. Share this episode. Make sure that you pick up the free mothers. Mother's Day is coming up. Just saying. All right. So have a good rest of your week. Happy early birthday, Mike. You all keep securing your seat, and we'll see you soon.